Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here. Now today I will be covering the Russian premium aircraft, the P-40E-1 Kittyhawk. Now here I am attempting to do a bombing mission on that little convoy with my two 100-pound bombs and my one 500-pound bomb. I did equip them and I spent a decent amount of time trying to sneak around to grab some kills, but one thing with historical battle is bombing with a fighter is truly an art. There is no bombing reticle, and I have not mastered that yet. But I'm assuming that once you're able to do that, this would be a decent choice for a fighter bomber or a ground attack aircraft of sorts. As historically, later in the war, as new fighter models came out, this aircraft was kind of resigned more towards the fighter bomber role and close air support and whatnot. So it performed well in that role, and I'd imagine that it will perform decently at that, assuming you can figure out the bombing thing in historical battles. Now, why do the Russians have it? Why is it a Russian premium aircraft? Well, it was a lend-lease aircraft produced by the Americans, and for the record, this was the third most produced American aircraft of the war after the P-51 and P-47. Furthermore, it was flown by 12 different nations. So it will be a relatively prevalent aircraft, I'm assuming, at launch. You'll have a lot of different models in a couple different nations, like the British, Russians, Americans, and I think even the Japanese will have access to it, whether it's a mainline fighter for the Americans or a premium aircraft for the other nations. But the Japanese actually took a couple of them and operated them. So I'd expect the Japanese to also have this as a premium aircraft. So, two main reasons. Why would you get this aircraft? First, if you're a Russian pilot and or you're an American and you're working on your Russian tree and you're a big fan of the Kittyhawk, you'd get this aircraft. If you want to try something new, or if you're a Russian pilot and you're not necessarily very accurate, this thing has 650 caliber machine guns with 1,686 rounds currently, so it's a little more forgiving with for those who are not necessarily very accurate in historical. A lot of the Russian fighters generally will have one heavier machine gun or cannon and one lighter machine gun, whereas this one has 6 machine guns. So I think it would allow for newer Russian historical battle players who are not very accurate to kind of get accustomed without running out of ammunition and then having one little machine gun to try to take something down with. So keeps up the hitting power and good ammunition count. Now, when comparing the P-40 to other aircraft historically, the P-40 became the main Allied fighter aircraft in Africa, because it was considered superior to the Hurricane, and Africa was an early war theater. So that was some good hitting power from the 50 cals, but the P-40 is superior to the Hurricane, and with regards to Italian aircraft and German aircraft, since in Africa that is who the Allies fought, the P-40 was considered superior to most Italian aircraft, like the Fiat G50 and the Mach-E C200. Also, it was kind of a toss-up. A lot of people consider it a toss-up whether the P-40 was better than the Mach-E C202. The P-40 had better armament. That was the biggest downside to the Mach-E C202. But the 202 or Fulgor had better turn radius and better aerobatic performance. Now, with regards to the P-40's performance, it was much better at lower altitudes. It's a lower altitude fighter, and that's where you're really going to get the most out of this aircraft. Not necessarily high altitude where I'm flying now, but this is trying to get the upper hand, which is one of the core tenets of any fighter pilot in historical battles that I have learned. At first, I always thought it was a chore to climb up there, but it truly is worth it because you have your choice. You can observe everything, see all the aircraft. A lot of them will not see you, and you can literally dive on the target of your choice, get on their 6 or go for a higher deflection angle, and usually end them pretty quickly. Since I've been doing that, I've been getting a lot better results in terms of kills. So if you're a fighter pilot, highly recommend doing that. For you historical battle veterans, that is obvious, but for those of you who are thinking about getting into it, a lot of people have been asking me for historical battle, kind of like tips. I'm not the best pilot, I'm an above average pilot, and lately I'm becoming an above average historical battle pilot, so I'm enjoying that, and there's a couple different things you can learn, one of which is that, and then also knowing your aircraft. With this, I know that if I want to get at lower altitudes, I will be able to fare better against BF-109s, as it was historically. Whereas in higher altitudes, I will likely get my butt kicked. Now, so that kind of brings up comparing this aircraft to the German BF-109. And it was superior to the BF-109E at lower altitudes. It could maneuver better, and it had comparable firepower. The BF-109E had a better climb rate, better speed, and higher operational ceiling, so it seems relatively straightforward that if you're going to want to fight the BF-109s, you're going to want to do it at lower altitudes. So keep that in mind.
Hello.
Now, let's see.
I didn't mean to text you. I meant to
I left my microphone on in this game, and it's actually kind of funny near the end, so I was like, whoa, what was that? And then I remembered the point of this clip here, to show some kills, and then it gets a little silly that I forgot to mute the microphone. But yeah, so the P-40 has also a better dive speed than the BF-109E, and I think most earlier BF-109s, but if feel free to correct me on that or put in a little more information. One of my favorite German pilots, Hans Joachim Marseille. I like him in the style that he used. He was obviously very successful, so that's rather attractive to me. And also the way he fought. He used superior vision and then really good high deflection angled shooting, so he was very accurate. And those are kind of things that I want to get better at. I already have pretty good vision, but I need to get better at accuracy. But he claimed 101 P-40 kills in his career, so that guy was just destroying stuff. Now, another reason to use premium aircraft, obviously, is because of the economic advantages from doing so. Now, this is kind of appropriate, a little segue real quick, that I am attacking aircraft on about to land or about to take off and attacking ground targets. I already said that this aircraft was good at a fighter-bomber role, and the Flying Tigers, American pilots fighting for the Chinese in China against the Japanese, used this aircraft, and they often found themselves strafing Japanese planes on the ground and were rather effective at it. So I thought that was kind of appropriate. Also, I'm using my gun convergence at 300 meters right now, and I'm noticing my bursts on those soft ground targets and even against aircraft seems to net me better results. And I think that's usually corresponds to the distances at which I generally start firing on aircraft, especially in concentrated bursts, as opposed to just like a quick little burst, but 2-3 second bursts. But yeah, it's worked out pretty well for me so far. And I like to do a little more gun convergence testing. I know NTEC has done a great deal on it, and that's kind of where I've learned from. But here I am going around to try to circle and grab this enemy aircraft on the tarmac, on the airfield. Poor Spitfire, but you know what? He'd do the same to me. I felt a little guilty, and you can see that in the chat. But don't underestimate the hitting power of 50 caliber machine guns, especially for this tier 4 aircraft. 50 cals can do very well against most planes that it'll come up against, under the theory that you're being matchmaked matchmakers working appropriately. But yeah, the economy. Why you'd want to get this? if you like this aircraft, and for the other reasons I mentioned previously, there is a 340% boost to Lions gained. So that is pretty sizable. Premium aircraft are the best farmers and grinders in the game. And if you can find a plane that you really enjoy, that's one of the reasons most people use the Dora on the German line. It's a very good aircraft. And then the economic side of it is just like, it's a no-brainer. So that is kind of where people accuse Doras of being wallet warriors, because they truly are. But when compared to Japanese aircraft, the Flying Tigers, for example, had 115 planes destroyed for only 4 lost. I'm pretty sure. And a lot of that could be attributed to the fact that, as I said earlier, these guys were used as ground attack and would strafe airfields, and generally a lot of aircraft, waiting to go out. But it also shows how this aircraft was very good when used appropriately against Japanese aircraft. You are not going to want to get in a turning fight with a Japanese aircraft for obvious reasons. They will outturn you at lower speeds. Just because you can outmaneuver and fend off early BF-109s doesn't mean you're going to be able to do the same at low altitudes. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to do the same against the Japanese. You have to use each aircraft appropriately given the opponent you're going against, and that seems relatively obvious, but in the heat of battle it can be lost. You can say, oh, this tactic works well for me, I'm just going to stick to it. And here I'm approaching an enemy P-40 since we're over Korea, and I decided, I'm going to go for a higher altitude thing, and he's going to either have to rise up to meet me or he'll continue running and I'll be able to drop on him. And I imagine he may be a little damaged or low on ammunition since he's been flying around my airbase. And you can kind of hear the microphone in the background. But yeah. So, I don't know what happens to the IL-2. He just ghosts. And here's where the microphone leaving on gets a little funny. I don't know why I was whispering.
Oh, he's turning.
Hurry up. Get him.
Oh, I missed.
Poop.
Pretty girl distracted me.
Pretty girl, pretty girl, pretty girl. Smile.
Yep, so that's what happens when I leave the microphone on.
Aha!
But I grabbed
Got
the
him.
kill.
You did?
Mm-hmm. So overall, I'm a fan of this aircraft. Once you learn to deal with the aircraft, and how it should be used, I think you can use almost any aircraft. That seems rather obvious, but I'm a fan of it. The economic boosts from it are obvious. If you want more ammunition, you're going to want this comparable to a lot of the other Russian fighter aircraft, but it definitely can hold its own. And when used appropriately, it will net you pretty good results. So overall, I'm a fan of the Russian premium P-40 Kittyhawk. Let me know what aircraft you want me to cover next and what nation I should do after I complete the Russians. I'm Baron. Thanks for watching. I'm out. One of its original roles, what this aircraft was planned to do, was intercept bombers, but there was a couple problems with the aircraft's design that basically didn't really enable it to be a bomber interceptor. And here you can hear me just firing machine guns and then trying to line up a 37mm round. And I hit it on the second one, and I'm thinking I'm about to take this guy down when out of the blue.